And we are live here in the Storycraft Cafe. I am your host, Hank Garner. Today, super excited to have Brad Meltzer on the show. Brad's got a brand new book, and I've got it here on the screen. I can pop it up. It's called The Viper. And if you are familiar with Brad's writing, this is book number 3 in the Zig and Nola series. I have to tell you, Brad, I absolutely love the characters of Zig and Nola. They are so fun. I love that they have become series characters, which we don't always get. Sometimes we find characters that we really resonate with, and the author just doesn't have any more to say, even though the readers we really want them to continue, and I love that they have. So The Viper is out now. It's been out a week or two now. I think it's been
just
out
a week. Just not even. Yeah, I think 7 days is today.
Yeah, amazing. Love it. So happy to have you. Welcome, Brad.
So good to be back, my friend. It's so good to see you. And
Cool.
it's interesting because I've written characters before where people have said, "Hey, bring them back," but I was like, I don't know. But people love Zig and Nola, and if you've never read Zig and Nola before, the blurb on the book says, by best-selling author, says this is the perfect place to meet Zig and Nola. You could jump right in with the Viper. You don't have to read anything else, and you'll meet these amazing characters who have been kind of stalking through my brain for the past decade.
I love it. We're gonna do a deep dive on Zig and Nola in a minute, but before we do, I have a 2-part question that I want to throw at you just to get the conversation started. And the first part of that question is, what is the best piece of writing advice you ever received, and did you act upon it? Did you take that advice?
The second part of that question is the brilliant part of the question, right? Because I'll tell you what it was. Is I was working on my very first book I ever wrote. Got 24 rejection letters. There were only 20 publishers. I got 24 rejection letters, which means some people were writing me twice to make sure I got the point.
Right.
But I said if they don't like that book, I'll write another. If they don't like that, I'll write another. But so I did that. And then my second book that I wrote is the one that got published. And I was so excited, and it did well, and my family bought a lot of copies, so we were very lucky.
Yeah.
But then I started what became my second novel, really my third, but the one that was going to be published second. And it was just so hard for me. It was such a struggle. And I felt like I couldn't complain, because I was like, how do you complain when you have a job talking to imaginary people? This isn't a real job. And I was just in a full, true panic over it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's just not working. It's not doing it. And a best-selling author, one of the most famous guys on the planet, took me to lunch, and he said, "Let me take you to lunch." And he said to me, he saw what I was, struggling with, and he said, "Brad, if it was easy, everyone would do it." And I was like, and I know it sounds so simple, but it just was like a weight was off my chest. And I was like, oh, it's okay to admit it's hard. And that's the best writing advice I have, is because people are always like, oh, I don't know, it's so hard, it's so intimidating. Like, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And I think that about all of life, those big, great things you want to try, if they were easy, everyone would do them. Go for them. Why not you? Why not you? And that's the advice I did take. I actually did, and just started plowing forward, and have never, thankfully, every book is hard. I'm doing this 20 something years. Every one of them is still hard for me, and I know what I'm doing. So I firmly believe whatever that thing you're chasing, go chase it, man.
So the other side of that question is, what is the worst piece of writing advice you have ever had offered to you, and did you take that?
Oh, you're good, Hank. Okay, so let me tell you this. Again, second part's the key part.
Oh, yeah.
So the worst advice, when I first started working, we did a little television show, and I went out to LA. And this guy said to me, who's a dear friend who I adore, said to me, he said, here's how you decide whether to take a job in Hollywood or anywhere, really. He said, either one, you love what they're doing and you love what you're doing. You love it. That's one. 2, you're working with people who you love. Or 3, they're paying you a crap load of money. And 2 of those 3 things, 2 of them have to be true. And I remember he told to me, and I was like, this is the wisdom being handed down to me by the Hollywood insider. Like, I was just like, I'm getting the genius wisdom. And now I look back on that advice, And I just think that was terrible advice. The only reason you should ever do anything is 1 and 2. You love what
Yeah.
you're doing. You love who you're working with. Because if you're just doing it for the money, 1, you're going to be miserable. 2, it's going to show. It's just all going to be garbage. And I guess that's why Hollywood is Hollywood, and I'm thankfully not there. So that was my worst one.
But the dangerous part of that advice is that it rings sort of true, and I think it hits on that pessimistic, just cynical side where we just assume the worst about people and industries, and we become very cynical, and it to the point that it makes sense when you hear someone being cynical.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, I always say that the truth has the greatest lies have a ring of truth to them.
Right, exactly.
And it does, because you hear those first 2 and you're like, yeah. And then you think about money, you're like, yeah, that's all sounds right. I thought it was beautiful, but I think you, as in all things, money may make life easier, but it is not how you create good in the world. It is not the thing that's going to make everything be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's someone who, trust me, I grew up with no money. Money was a source of real pain in my house. It was a real source of stress. I remember we knew not to answer the door at the end of the month because that's when the rent was due that we didn't have. We knew not to pick up the phone at the end of the month because that was when the credit card companies would call looking for their payments. Like, we knew that. And so, that again, for me, I was like, that sounds great. Someone's going to give me a lot of money, which they weren't. But I've since learned not to follow such nonsense.
Yeah. You mentioned a few minutes ago that first book that you wrote and that you got 24 rejections out of 20 publishers, which is hilarious. But I've interviewed 3,000 authors over the last decade or so, and I hear 2 stories from authors. We love to divide writers into 2 camps for some reason. A lot of times it's the plotters and pantsers that kind of get the most, but there are other camps that we love to divide people into. One of them that I've noticed is when people write that first novel, people will either collect rejections for it and then scrap that book and go write a completely new novel, or they will keep revising that first novel until it finally sells. And I've often wondered what the difference in that mindset is. Is it can you see the problem with that first book and you're just like, well, it's it has problems that either I can't fix or I don't want to fix. I'm tired of this book. Is there a better idea that is more shiny that you want to chase? Like what is that determination that makes you say, okay, I know I spent a year of my life on this book, but I'm just going to shelve it and chalk that up to experience, lessons learned. But I think I have a better idea. Like what is that determination?
No, I'll tell you. I mean, for me, I can't listen. Your mileage may vary, but for me, I had written my first book and I loved it. I thought I still think it's great. I really do. It's still never been published except by Kinko's. Still sits on my shelf. But I remember I found an agent with that book, and my agent loved the book. She was like, "Let's go out and get the sale." And we got those 24 rejection letters. And she said to me, I'll never forget, may she rest in peace, Jill Neeren was my wise soul, my agent. She passed away just a few years back. And in fact, The Viper is dedicated to her. I dedicated the new book to her because she had passed while I was writing it. And she said to me, I can try and sell your book. We've gone to 24 of the big places now. Back then, there were 24 big places. Now there's so much fewer. But she said, I can keep going and try and find like a small vanity press or some small little thing that maybe will put out a couple of thousand copies. She said, but if I do that, you're going to have a track record. And that track record will be putting out a couple thousand copies, which again, nothing wrong with that. But she's like, I just think I think you can do, you're so young, you're 24 years old. She said, it's your first book. And I think if you have a track record, it's hard to dig out of that record. It's hard to say, like, if you only sold 1,000, like, oh, I can definitely sell then plenty of thousands, because they just look and assume that's what you're capable of. And I don't want anyone to know what you're capable of. until it goes out there in the right way. So you have a choice. I can keep going and try and bring it to a small place, or just, I love the way you talk about that new book. Just start the new book and see what happens. It sounds good. And that may have been the best advice I've ever gotten now that I think about it. And she just said, just put it aside, put your ego aside. It's okay that it's not going to go. And the truth is that I learned in that first book how to write. And then when I started the second book, now I knew what to do. And again, I don't know if there was a right answer or a wrong answer in there, but it certainly was some of the most valuable advice I ever got, because it was the second book that actually worked, not the first one.
Were there kernels of that original book that either have found their way into other novels or that might in the future?
Well, the thing that was so interesting, the first book was about, I just graduated college at the University of Michigan. So the book was about a guy who graduated college at the University of Michigan. I'm a very complex guy, Hank. Like, you can't crack my code. And there's this one part of the book where there's a big prank that goes horribly wrong, and it becomes kind of like a chase and a thriller, right? In the middle of this book, that's all about a kid graduating college and being in college. But this one scene was my favorite scene to write in the whole book. And it was the chase and the running and the thing and the scheming and they're tricking each other. And I still look back on it. I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I look back at that scene and I'm like, there's the thriller. It's this one 50-page hunk of it, 40-page hunk of it that I was like, this is what I like best. I didn't have back then the writing skills to just tell a character-driven story with no plot. That takes a different level of skill and intuition and understanding of humanity and how it works. I did not have that at 24 years old. I barely have it now. I needed the plot as like a thread. I almost think of it as like a clothesline. And then I clip my characters onto the clothesline of the plot, and then I can move them along. But I need that line there. And I think the plot for me for a long time was a crutch, and in a good way, not in a bad way, but to give me something that I'll hook you in on the plot, and then I'm going to tell you all these very human stories with my characters. And I learned that from the first book. So none of those pieces ever were used again completely, but the thriller part of it is exactly what I pulled back and made my career on. Because everyone was reading that first book was like, I like it okay, but this part's great. That was the part everyone reacted to. And I didn't consciously go, well, they reacted that, so now I do that. That's just what I liked. And once I got there, I figured out how to do more of it.
You have written a number of standalone thrillers through the years, legal thrillers in the early days. And then your writing sort of evolved out of that. I can't remember the book. I know you can tell me the book that the plot point was the Superman comic.
Book of Lies. Yeah.
Book of Lies.
My love of Superman was in that book. Yeah.
Yes, that was my favorite book for a long time until Ziganola came along. But you have described yourself in the past as kind of when this plotter pantser debate comes up.
Plotter? What's the second word? You say pantser?
Pantser, like riding by the seat of your pants.
Oh, pantser. Sorry, got it. Got it. Okay.
But
I'm like, what's the word? I couldn't understand what the word was.
I'm so sorry. But
I'm like, a planter? What's a planter?
Well, plantser.
Yeah. And Prancer. What reindeer is writing this book?
I think most writers kind of exist on the spectrum somewhere between those two. And I think you've described in the past, maybe in the last conversation we had, that you like to plan like a chunk of the book ahead while leaving some mystery, as to what might happen after that. Can you describe your process a little bit and how you think, about the story as you're writing and knowing where you're going while allowing yourself room to still kind of explore and let there be some dynamic ness to the writing process?
For me, I plot about 50 to 100 maybe even 50 pages to 100 pages, and then I know the ending. I know who did it. I always know who did it before I start. I know the whole kind of through line, but I don't know all the how.
Yeah.
And I remember that's how I've always done it. But my second book I ever did, I was like, well, why am I even making more work for myself? I'm going to just plot the whole thing. And I made a giant outline. Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through number 70, whatever it was, like every chapter, I had it all out. And it was the worst experience I ever had as a writer. It was the hardest book I ever wrote. It was the most boring for me as the writer to write it. It felt like I was doing a connect the dots for a paint by number picture, because there was no fun. I was just like, it was just, I got to do this, then I got to do this, then I got to do this, then I got to do this, and then I'll do this. What I love, and I've realized I love, is making sure I have the beginning of it. I know the ending. I need to know where I'm going, but being open to how am I going to get there? And why? Because 3 months into the book, I'm like, wait a minute. He's sleeping with her and they're actually going together. And it evolves. It just evolves. Right. It gets better. And I like that process. To me, that's the fun. The one thing I add to it as I get older and that I learned, and that's where Zig and Nola came from, is I used to kind of do that sometimes with some of my characters. And I think the book suffered for it somewhere. Like I just was like, I know I've done this enough. I know how to build the boat while I'm sailing the boat. And I can do that. Just give me a bit of a plot and I'll figure it out. Yeah. But that's not going to be the best book. It's best when you're doing that and you have a deep understanding of what the arc is for the characters.
Right.
You understand those characters to their core. And I remember having Zig as a character, this guy who believes that if you put good into the world becomes a better place. That's such a nice idea. It's a completely naive idea, but it's an idea worth fighting for.
Sure.
And I was like, yeah, I'll figure out, the other character. I know I have this other character he's going to be with, but I'll figure it out as I go. And I was about to start. I'm like, do not do that. I went back and looked at all my books. When I was turned 50, I had like a midlife crisis. And I was like, my midlife crisis was, I looked back at all of my novels and said, which are the actual best ones? It can't all be the best, but which are the best ones? And the ones that I picked out were all the ones that had the best characters. So I was like, don't start this book until you have this other character. And I was researching, I was with the military on this military base, and they were taking me to this giant warehouse, and the warehouse was filled with art. And I was like, why does the Army have all this art? And they explained to me, and this is true, that since World War I, the U.S. Army has had an actual painter on staff who paints disasters as they happen, whether it's storming the beaches of Normandy, whether it's Vietnam, 9/11. And I'm like, you're telling me that everyone's racing in with guns blazing, and you've got someone who's racing in with nothing but paintbrushes in their pockets.
Right.
Like, that guy sounds crazy. I want to meet him. That's my new character. I want to meet him. And they said, you mean her. You want to meet her. And I'm not joking. The moment they said the word her, Nola was born in my head. I was like, there's the character. This woman who cares so little about her own life that she's willing to paint a disaster and put everything at risk for art. I was like, this character's nuts. I want to know why she is and who she is and what's about her. And that's when the escape artist came, and that's when Zig and Nola were truly born. But I luckily didn't start the book until I had them both.
Well, what was the initial idea to pair these two characters together? Because, Zig is this, he has these big ideas, and, and he's an idealist, and then Nola, not so much, wildly talented, doesn't, kind of caution to the wind. And these two together, when it's this really interesting alchemy when these two get together.
I knew in my head why to bring them together was, from a storytelling standpoint, I was like, Zig has lost his daughter. He will never have his daughter. He will never get his daughter back. And Nola never had a childhood. She was thrown away, never had a father. She will never have a father. So Zig will never get a daughter. She will never have a father. Neither of them will ever get what they truly want, but they're stuck with each other. And that was always the plot. That was always the plan for who they were. But here's what I missed about that story is I knew Zig was me. I am someone who believes if you put good into the world becomes a better place. I also know that, like Nola, I believe that that's nonsense. And sometimes when you want the world to make sense, you got to grab it by the throat and force it to make sense, right? When you see someone being picked on, you got to stand up and use your voice. And I probably last time I spoke to you, and I meant every word I said when I said it, but I just thought I was trying to explore which side of me is right.
Yeah.
We're all Zig and we're all Nola, right? We all have our kindness in us and generosity in us, and we all have some fight in us, especially when we see
Mhm.
someone, that's being picked on. And I just thought it's me exploring which side of me is right, and eventually I'll figure it out. But I was wrong about that. And it took me The Viper, the new book, to figure it out, which was you don't have to pick. You
Yeah.
don't have to pick which side. And I can tell you this because I shouldn't say that. Well, I'm going to say it. I don't care. So my father was a complicated guy. When I
As most
graduated,
fathers are.
as most fathers are, my dad was
Yeah.
like, he would just blow crap up. He just was like, really just make mistakes. Give you the example, make it make more sense. When I was in my senior year of college, I went down the register for my classes,
Mhm.
and they said, sorry, you can't register. You're kicked out of school. No one's paid your bills. And my first thought was, I'm like, Dad. And I knew what happened. He didn't pay them. Of course, he wasn't educated. He had no money. It's okay. I was lucky I was even there. I went down to the registrar's office. I calmed everything down. They turned my debt into a loan. They give me a 1% loan that I signed for right there so I can graduate in time. Thank you, ma'am. Quicksand and I'm on becomes solid ground. I got it. Crisis averted. Now I graduate college. I change my home address, so all the mail starts getting forwarded to me. And I quickly get $40,000 of credit card bills. None of them that I've opened, all in my name. My dad, all those offers that college kids get saying, hey, want a new credit card? My dad took all of them because that's how he was paying for me to go to college. He was taking all of that credit card, which is so stupid because that's a 22% interest rate on a credit card when he could have had a 1% loan. So it's doubling quickly, and he's out of his control. The debt is just piling up. They tell me the only way out of it is I got to testify against my father because it's fraud. And basically that's the only way I'm getting out of the debt. I'm not ratting out my own father.
Right.
But I make deals with all the companies and we make payments to each one over a long period of time. Again, quicksand becomes solid ground. But eventually you keep getting smacked in the back of the head and you start looking over your shoulder. And here's the part I missed, Hank, about the story. And I told this part of the story at my dad's funeral. Is my dad used to get beat up by his own father, who was a boxer in the military. He used to hit my dad. I know for sure that my dad used to jump in front of his own little brother, my uncle, to take the punches for him so he wouldn't get hit. I know he used to jump in front of his own mother, my grandmother, so she wouldn't get hit. She would take the hits for her. But what I couldn't see is that's what my dad was doing for me. He was taking those financial hits for me so I wouldn't have to. But I couldn't see that part of the story.
Right.
Because I was so focused on all the headache he was causing me, all the pain. Like, why are you doing these dumb things, Dad? Why are you creating this headache for me? It's all about me. I couldn't see that his intention was like he was going to take it all on his own shoulders so I wouldn't have to. And it was a terrible plan. There were better ways to do it, but I couldn't even see that.
Right.
And I say that simply to say is that black and white thinking of you got to choose between your good side, your bad side, your Zig, your Nola.
Right.
That's absurd. We're all of those things. And I think the lesson I learned in The Viper when I wrote it is you got to love yourself for who you are and love your crazy family for who they are. And know we're all of us amazing and terrible and wonderful and selfish and magnanimous, like sometimes in the same day, sometimes in a couple minutes. And I think this whole process of Zig and Nola has been helping me explore just trying to realize you got to love yourself for who you are, all those parts.
I love that. I love that so much. And while there's a certain amount of Zig and Nola just being Zig and Nola that we would show up for just to follow them, along to the donut shop every day. You bring in these big ideas that turn into plot that then you thrust Zig and Nola into, and then the fireworks happen that we're here for. In this book, in The Viper, we start exploring witness protection. How do you land on kind of the big idea? I'm not asking the trite question, where do you get your ideas from? But there is a big idea that then you start, well, if I do this, then I can, extrapolate this from it, and then I can put them into this situation. There's like, how do you land?
Where does that come from?
Yeah. Where's the big idea that you start forming a plot from?
Yeah, so I was in a funeral home doing research, and I'll say it, this guy's taking me around. Usually in a funeral home for the bad reason. I was in there
Right.
for research, and he's showing me all the different rooms. Here's where the caskets are and the urns. Here's where the bone saws are and these like gruesome things. But I see this one door has a lock on it, big giant padlock. So
Mm.
I'm like, well, what's in there?
Yeah. What's in there?
And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, you're gonna like this. And he takes out his key and he opens up the thing, undoes the lock, door swings wide, and inside are all these clothes. And it's like the suits that your grandparents would wear to a fancy event. Like there's a pinstriped old suit with the big shoulder pads in it. There's like a sequin gown your grandmother would wear. And when you have no family and you're old, some people pick out what they're going to wear to their own funeral. And there's like a Jets jersey in there. There's a cowboy hat in there that someone says, hey, when I die, my ex-wife hates that hat. Make sure I'm wearing it in my coffin. I want her to see it one last time. Like people are crazy, right? But I looked at that and I was like, this is the greatest hiding spot I've ever seen. Because so let's just do it. A man walks into a funeral home carrying his favorite blue suit. This is the start of the Viper. And this is the suit he's going to be buried in. And I remember this, and this is why I thought of it, is that when you go to your local bank and you open a safety deposit box, paperwork gets filed. And government can track it eventually if they want to. Same if you go to a PO box and UPS store and open a PO box. But if you secretly sew something into the lining of your suit and you take that suit and you hand it to your local mortician, which is what all these people have done, you have the ultimate untraceable hiding spot. So the man walks back to his hotel. There's a guy with a gun waiting, says, where is it? Man says, I don't know what you're talking about. Guy shoots the man dead. You won't believe what's actually hidden in that suit, in that closet, or who's about to find it. And that's chapter 1 of the Viper. And then I'm like, here we go. I got it. And that's where the whole story began for me for the Viper. It's why you can jump in and you don't need to read any other Ziganola book to enjoy it. And then, as you said, along the way, I start finding things. All I do is I just look into what I mentioned. I truly was just like, I want to know about witness protection. Yeah. And so I started looking into witness protection and finding these amazing facts, which I can talk about if you want or not, but you tell me.
Well, sure. What are some things that you discovered? And when you discover these amazing things, do you have some sort of filing system, or do you just, is it one of those ideas that sticks in the back of your head, like, oh, this is definitely going to make it into the book?
There's definitely things that I certainly have a quote unquote filing system of like, okay, here's cool stuff I found.
Yeah.
And some works and sometimes it just doesn't. And you got to wait like 3 books for it to be in there, like it just doesn't, it has to feel organic and like part of it.
Yeah.
But I started finding, I was obsessed with witness protection. And I started and when we think of witness protection, what do we think of? We think of the mob and Tony Soprano and which is what witness protection was designed for, take down the mob.
Yeah.
But it worked. It actually worked. It doesn't mean crime stopped, however, right? Different mobsters went down, but new criminals took their place. So eventually the biggest group in witness protection, instead of being mobsters, became gang members. Because gangs were thriving after that. And then when 9/11 happened, we started chasing terrorists. So terrorists became one of the biggest groups in witness protection. Right now, you want to know one of the biggest groups in witness protection? Accountants, because data is king, right? That's what we're chasing now.
True.
And so you will never look at witness protection the same way again once you read The Viper. And I just loved researching it. It was just I was like, I know what I'm going to do here. This is going to be a fun one.
So when you come up with the big idea and then you start seeing how the big idea can spin into a plot, how do you decide to bring Ziganola into it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I can bring Ziganola into anything. The question is why are you bringing him anything?
Right.
What are they going to gain here?
Yeah.
And obviously this book was a pretty simple one because, and again, it doesn't ruin anything, but it says this on the jacket copy, but the book is about who, eventually as this case kind of starts to unfold, it's very personal because it's about who killed Nola's mother.
Right.
And that's what they're chasing. And Nola's like, I don't care who killed my mom. I didn't know her. She abandoned me. I don't care about this case. I don't care about her. And Zig's like, I think she probably does, and I should probably help here. And so it puts them on this great collision course of her saying like, stay out of my damn life, old man. And him being like, you got to stop pushing the whole world away. And that to me is where the fireworks are, right? That's the best part of it, is watching the dynamic of them dealing with this personal thing in completely opposite ways.
Yeah.
And that's why they're worth bringing in here. I always say that you want the case, and it's not, you've heard it a million times because of your show, like, right? It's not, you don't let the character work the case, you let the case work the character.
Yeah.
And once I knew, and I always knew this book was going to be about who killed Nola's mother, I knew the case was going to work the character.
Yeah. Love it. You took a bit of a detour for a few years and put out this amazing series of children's books, these biographical sketches of people. Did you know that was going to turn into what it did and become
So for those who don't know, Chris Eliopoulos and I do a line of kids books that we designed because we were tired of our own kids looking at people who are famous on Instagram with 1 billion followers and thinking that's a hero. So we were like, we can give them better heroes. We started with I Am Amelia Earhart and I Am Abraham Lincoln, and just thought this will be better heroes for our kids, and had no idea that 10 years later we were going to have nearly 40 books in the series. And people are, I am Rosa Parks, I am Martin Luther King Jr., my son loves sports. I was like, forget millionaire overpaid athletes. Right. Here's I am Jackie Robinson. Here's I am Jesse Owens. My daughter loves animals. I'm like, here's I am Jane Goodall, I wrote for you. My youngest son is creative and loves creative stuff. So I'm like, here's I am Mr. Rogers, and I am Walt Disney, and I am Jim Henson. I love doing those books. And the only thing I figured out, Hank, after all this time, is we were clearly not that special, because there were millions of parents out there that wanted the same thing for their kids. And I love the fact that people now use our kids' books to build libraries of real heroes for their kids and their grandkids, their nieces, their nephews. And we have in just a few weeks in February, we're doing our first book on empathy, which is I Am Princess Diana. I was like, I want kids to learn about empathy. We did mental health. We did I Am Simone Biles. We're doing I Am Teddy Roosevelt. And I just love the fact that we are kind of using it to fight back against the cynicism in society today and giving kids real heroes to look up to.
Well, speaking of heroes, one of my favorite comic book runs was the run that you did on Justice League. As a kid who grew up with dyslexia, comic books had a very special place in my heart, because I learned to read by reading, Justice League and Superman comics in the late 70s. That run that you did on Justice League is one of kind of a high water mark for me. Do you ever have any desire to write comics again, or to do a one-off series or anything?
So this is the best question you've asked me, because they're going to announce in the next 2 weeks I'm coming back to comics. I'm doing something really, really fun. That is it. Wait until you see it. You have my email. Just email me when it's done, because I want you to. You're gonna crap your pants for this one. It's a big
okay.
One. And then I do a lot of work with Ghost Machine. I'm actually doing regular comics with them. Nice. For those who don't know, there's DC and there's Marvel, but my friend Jeff Johns and I and a bunch of other amazing artists and writers teamed up to form Ghost Machine, which is a group making their own comics, and great comics like Geiger and Redcoat. And we're going to do a comic called First Ghost. And First Ghost is based on this true story that when Abraham Lincoln's son died, everyone started saying that the White House was haunted. And it's a story about the ghosts that haunt the White House. And First Ghost is going to be out hopefully in time for San Diego Comic-Con. And Gene Haas drawn in, Jeff Johns and I are writing it together. So that Justice League run is one of my favorite things I've ever worked on. And Gene Ha and I did issue 11 together. And it gets to reunite us with one of my favorite artists that I've ever worked with.
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, but wait till you see what we announce in 2 weeks. You will not believe it.
I'm here for it. I'm super excited. Well, folks, The Viper is out everywhere. Zig and Nola, book 3. Brad, if people are just discovering you, and what rock have they been hiding under, if they have, where is a good place for people to find you online, dig into all the stuff that you're up to, your amazing back catalog, and stay tuned for news coming up. Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, go bradmeltzer.com or find me at Brad Meltzer on Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok. I mean, everywhere. You name it. Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok. We're everywhere. There's an @ there's an @Brad Meltzer account. And if you join, I will say, if you're watching our tour go around the country, you can see everyone sporting these Viper tattoos, which we sent out free. So if you join our mailing list, you go to bradmeltzer.com and hit the little mailing list, join us button. You get the most silly. We've done secret decoder rings. We've done secret decoder masses. We've done free playing cards. When we did a book on playing cards, we've done free tattoos. So I love, our fans are the best. And in fact, at the last 2 couple stops ago, you can see it on my Instagram page, we actually had our first Viper tattoo tramp stamps. And that, I'm not sure if it was the high point or the low point, but it was certainly a point.
It was a point.
Yeah. It was, to me, it was the high point. My wife was like, this might be the low point, but I thought it was 2 of the nicest people ever did it.
Understood. Well, have you had anybody, go the bald head route with the tattoo?
Listen, Hank, it's you, it's me. So it's just a matter of which one of us is going to do it first. So
I'm just saying, stay tuned. Yeah. Brad, always a pleasure to get to catch up. And I love the Viper, and we're sending everybody we can to pick up a copy. So thank you for taking time to come on the show.
Thank you, brother. Always good seeing you.